developing story. There has been an explosion.
Absolutely shocking.
Devastating flooding hitting South Carolina has reached catastrophic levels. At least 5 people have been killed in the state, and officials are worried that number will rise. Several days of relentless rainfall have left roads so saturated on Sunday many of them gave way.
We haven't seen this level of rain in the Lowcountry in 1,000 years. That's how big this is.
Flash floods caused by torrential rain along parts of the French Riviera have killed at least 16 people, with 3 others still missing. The Interior Ministry says that the downpour hit the Alps Maritime region Saturday evening.
It's Guatemala's worst natural disaster in years. Part of this mountainside collapsed late Thursday, burying 125 homes under 1 million cubic meters of earth.
This hurricane season will already go down in the record books as the most active for the Central Pacific. KITV4's Paul Drews explains there's still a lot of time and ideal conditions for additional storms to form before this season finally ends.
The predictions were correct for this hurricane season. The Central Pacific has been bustling with storms.
We're expecting 5 to 8 tropical cyclones in that basin.
Instead of that high number of storms, it's turned into a record-setting season. There have already been 8 named systems that formed in the Central Pacific alone. 4 other tropical cyclones from the Eastern Pacific also moved in, and we're not done yet.
With the El Nino, we had several more above that, and I would expect it to continue to be active until the end of hurricane season.
Before the hurricane season officially began here, Andres formed in late May, far to the east of us, and quickly grew into a Category 4 hurricane before fizzling out. After 2 more systems in the Eastern Pacific, the first named storm formed in Central Pacific waters. Ella only reached tropical storm strength before dying to the northeast, but it did bring the state some rain. In August, as the warm waters of the Pacific spread westward, the storms moved closer to the state. And take a look at this shot. At one point, Hawaii was in between 3 Category 4 storms, Ignacio, Kilo, and Jimena, something that's never happened before. As the hurricane season goes on, there remains the threat of tropical cyclones being created close to the state and leaving residents little time to prepare for an emergency.
These tropical cyclones can form. They don't necessarily have to be thousands of miles away. They can form right on our doorstep.
Only another 2 months to go, you might say, but in this hurricane season filled with first and records, even the end of the season may not mean an end to tropical cyclones.
Given that we're in an El Nino year, I would not be surprised to see a storm lingering into the winter, December, possibly even January.
Paul Drews, KITV4 News.
It's Guatemala's worst natural disaster in years. Part of this mountainside collapsed late Thursday, burying 125 homes under 1 million cubic meters of earth. Rescue workers and volunteers race against time, shoveling through mountains of dirt in the search for survivors. But today, all they found were lifeless bodies, a hard reality for many here.
6 of my family members are missing, my parents and 4 siblings. I haven't been able to rest, and I won't be able to until I see them again. But asking to see them alive is a lot. They're buried under 15 meters of dirt.
The landslide hit around 9:30 at night when many people were at home. It followed days of near constant rain. Those who could ran out of their homes when they heard the hillside crashing down, but many didn't escape.
My neighbour's house was here, along this edge. When it was hit, everything was pushed back 2 meters. They're digging here, but they haven't found any survivors.
Heavy machinery was brought in by the army, and more than 1,600 rescuers have joined the search, motivated by signs of survivors. Every 20 or 30 minutes you can hear a whistle blow and everybody stops working. That means that somebody thinks that they've heard a voice coming from underneath all this tons of mud and rock. But with this layered up 45 meters on top of the houses, many people here say that they're running out of hope. Rescue workers have no plans to stop the search, but the moment the rain falls again, they could suspend the operation.
We can see that the hill opposite the slide also runs the risk of a landslide, and on the side that already collapsed, there's a fracture that could bring down more earth.
Some say this was a disaster foretold. In 2008, authorities warned local politicians that this ravine was a risk zone and that no one should be living here. David Mercer, Al Jazeera, Santa Catarina Pinula, Guatemala.
Millions in the southeast are dealing with some of the worst flooding in the area's history. Torrential rain forced hundreds of rescues Sunday in South Carolina. The flooding has killed at least 7 people in the Carolinas.
South Carolina's governor says a downpour like this happens only once in 1,000 years. Several cities have already broken rainfall records for October. Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, received more than 2 feet of rain in the last few days. David Begnaud is in Columbia, the state capital, where about a foot of rain has fallen. David, good morning.
Nora, good morning. I'm standing in a sinkhole, and behind me is a tax business that was destroyed when a wall of water rushed through it. There are scenes like this all over the city of Columbia. As calls for help came in yesterday, the water was rising almost at the same time. More than 200 people were rescued here in the city. Around town right now, people who have water have been told they need to boil it, and those who don't have been told they may be without it for 3 to 4 days. It's a disaster here.
Oh my God, the truck is sinking. The truck is sinking.
The devastating flooding hitting South Carolina has reached catastrophic levels. At least 5 people have been killed in the state, and officials are worried that number will rise. Several days of relentless rainfall have left roads so saturated on Sunday, many of them gave way.
We haven't seen this level of rain in the low country in 1,000 years. That's how big this is.
Crews rescued hundreds of people from fast-moving floodwaters.
Yep, he just made a mistake.
The driver of this pickup truck tried to drive through a flooded street, but his car was quickly overtaken. A man swam in to try to rescue him, but moments later, he too was trapped in the high water. Both men were rescued by emergency crews in a scene that is playing out across this state. This is Gills Creek. The water here has risen, we're told, at least 10 feet. And there's concern of another dam failure just right up the road. We've learned at least 5 dams have failed in Lexington and Richland counties, flooding those communities and prompting county officials to issue a curfew. 600 National Guardsmen have been activated, 8,000 are on standby. The Coast Guard rescued this woman and her 15-month-old child after they became stranded in their home in Charleston.
This is an incident we've never had before because it's water and it's slow moving and it's sitting and we can't just take the water out.
We were there as Ronald Austin retrieved medicine from the flooded home of his 84-year-old father. A neighbor with a kayak helped Austin make the potentially life-saving trip.
Just a godsend right there. You'd be able to, somebody to give you a ride there, you know, that was just almost like an answer to a prayer.
The city of Columbia has gotten more than 18 inches of rain in nearly 24 hours. That is almost a third of what they will get all year. You hear the sirens behind me, rescue crews already out and about. A majority of them are waiting for sunrise. When that happens, Vanita, we're told they will go back into search and rescue mode, going door to door just to check on people.
Some unbelievable signs of devastation. David, thank you.
There's a hole right side of the road. Boom.
You can see behind me the power of water. This happened this morning. Road washed out. There were some police wreckers here earlier. There were about 3 cars stranded up here. They were taken off, but this car isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Luckily, the driver was okay. In the meantime, schools around the area have been canceled. 600 National Guard have been activated. At least 100 rescues in this county alone. There have been about 5 to 6 storm-related deaths between here and North Carolina. Big road closures. I-95 at I-20 to I-26. I-95 at I-26. I-20 is closed in several places. There are a lot of curfews in effect for Sumter County, North Charleston, Columbia. In fact, some of the water gauges, some of the river gauges, Alex, were actually washed away. We're looking at crests, if not record crests, certainly coming very close to sometime tomorrow in the rivers throughout the area. And a macabre note, there were actually, I saw pictures of caskets floating in some cemeteries in and around the area. So, and we're not done yet. As you know, there could be another 1 to 5 inches of rain before this is all over. So there's a lot of flooding, a lot of homes, a lot of businesses flooded, a lot of roads closed. People are telling me it's taking them hours to try to get home when they live usually it would be a 20 to 30 minute commute. So the problem, the rain will stop tomorrow, but the problems will probably linger right on into next week or longer. I mean, you look at this road's going to be closed for a long time. Alex, these areas, some places they are talking about this is a 1 in 1,000 year flood.
And the typhoon Mujige landed in Guangdong on Sunday afternoon and headed west for the neighboring Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region. The storm is now moving northwest at a speed of about 20 kilometers per hour. It has wreaked havoc during China's Golden Week public holiday, when many people are traveling. Guangxi issued its second highest storm alert and it suspended services of 11 high-speed trains running along the coast for 12 hours from noon on Sunday and halted ticket sales of trains until Monday at noon. Mujige cut off electricity in some areas in Guangdong and forced nearly 39,000 fishing boats to return to harbor or nearby shelters. And the storm is expected to continue to bring heavy rain and strong winds to the coastal areas of Guangdong, Guangxi, and Hainan through Monday.
Mấy hôi à, thành à.
Flash floods caused by torrential rain along parts of the French Riviera have killed at least 16 people, with 3 others still missing. The Interior Ministry says that the downpour hit the Alps Maritime region Saturday evening, with the resort town of Cannes registering close to 180 millimeters of rain in 3 hours at the height of the stormy weather. During a visit to the flood-stricken region, French President François Hollande expressed condolences to the families of the victims and urged residents to remain cautious. The president promised aid for residents hit by the flooding. About 27,000 homes remained without power early Sunday, 14,000 of them in Cannes alone. Communications in the region, one of the wealthiest in France and a magnet for visitors from around the world, were badly hit. Around 500 people, many of them British and Danish tourists, were stranded at the Nice airport. About a dozen trains were halted at local stations.
La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah.
Search resumed this morning for an American cargo ship that vanished during Hurricane Joaquin. A CBS News camera was aboard a Coast Guard search plane yesterday. Searchers found a massive debris field. It is unclear if it came from the nearly 800-foot El Faro. The ship was sailing from Jacksonville to San Juan through the Bermuda Triangle. 33 crew members were on board, including 28 Americans. Mark Strassman is in Jacksonville, where family members are waiting for word. Mark, good morning.
Good morning. Last time anyone heard from the crew, the ship was listing, leaning at an angle of 15 degrees, taking on water, and stuck in the middle of a monster hurricane. Well, turns out what got them into the jam was terrible timing for engine trouble. Out in the Atlantic, Coast Guard search and rescue crews have located a debris field that stretches 225 square miles. Searchers have recovered cargo, life vests, styrofoam, wood, and an oil sheen. But still no sign of the missing ship, its lifeboats, or its crew of 33.
When we rolled up on that debris field, we were very optimistic and we were searching very thoroughly and in the hopes that we would find the survivors.
On Saturday, the Coast Guard recovered one of the ship's life rings while flying over an area inside the Bermuda Triangle.
The captain established his voyage plan. He had been observing this weather system for many days prior to this voyage.
The 790-foot vessel, packed with containers, set out last Tuesday for San Juan from Jacksonville, Florida. At that point, Joaquin was still a tropical storm. But its intensity grew quickly, and on Thursday at 7:20 a.m., the ship radioed a distress call from near the eye of the powerful Category 4 hurricane.
At that time, he indicated that the main propulsion of the vessel was disabled.
I'm just praying to God they bring them all home.
Family members cling to hope their loved ones are still alive and out there somewhere. Danielle Randolph is an El Faro crew member. She emailed her mother last week.
There is a hurricane out here, and we are heading straight into it. Category 3. Last we checked, winds are super bad and seas are not great. Love to everyone.
Relatives of the crew have been gathering at a local union hall here in Jacksonville. They've come for updates about the search, as well as to give each other comfort. Nora?
folks who are watching, if you are in or very familiar with South Carolina, the dam is in the community of Forest Acres. As Nick pointed out, it's the Over Creek Dam. Tom Sater is with me from our weather center. And Tom, again, just to also reiterate to people that they need water. The lack of electricity, issues with water, no drinking water. And so that's an issue. But then you have this fact that there is a mandatory evacuation now ordered downstream from this dam. What would those evacuations, what would they look like?
Well, that remains to be seen right now, Brooke, because right now we're just getting these media reports that there is this breach. Let's talk about where we are here and what is a breach. It could be overspill of a dam. It could be a small crack, possibly a small fracture. Now, when you look at the area, here is Forest Acres. Notice the high concentration of neighborhoods in the community here. When you take a look at the lakes, this is Rocky Ford Lake, you've got Spring Lake, and then it makes its way toward Forest Lake. These actually kind of flow a little bit toward the south. The dam, we believe, of course, what is called the Over Creek Dam, the breach, if it does occur and makes its way here, the evacuations would take place throughout the entire area. But again, it remains to be seen, Brooke, what this breach actually means. We're still trying to get information. I can tell you, in the last 24 hours, there have been over 30 breaches of dams and levees, which means try to, manage any type of river flow in the near future. It's spilling into some communities, which means if evacuations take place and other breaches fail, other levees fail, there will be more swift water rescues. There will be more in the way, of course, evacuations. Now, let me show you something else which is critical because it's not only this dam situation, Brooke, that we're talking about. When you look at the massive amounts of rainfall that has fallen in the area, and we know it's historic in purple, take a look now when I give you an idea of all of the rivers. The small tributaries, such as Gill Creek, which is near this dam we're talking about, rose over 7 feet in just a couple of hours. It washed away the river gauges. That has happened in many little smaller streams and tributaries. That's almost unheard of, meaning the levels have reached historic levels. All of these smaller tributaries are going to get into the larger rivers. Everything flows from west to east back across the state. Heavy amounts of rain even in Greenville were occurring in the last 24 hours. So that means communities that, sure, they may, Brooke, have seen a receding of the water. But a lot of that is because the breaches have failed, and in some cases, the levees, that is, and we're getting that spill, so the water level drops. But now, over the next 24, 48 hours, 36, as the water accumulates in the larger rivers, the pressure along the riverbanks are going to be so great that in some cases, Columbia, again, where the rivers converge and meet in the communities such as Charleston, several days later, there could be several more problems. There are several communities along these major rivers that run from Greenville to Columbia, from the north past the east of Columbia and east over to the northeast from Florence toward Myrtle Beach and Georgetown. Remember, Georgetown was completely submerged. They were pumping water back out into the ocean. During high tide, it was getting pushed back in. But a bigger problem, you come down east from Eastover to the city of Cross, which goes into Charleston.
Yep.
We are looking at what could be a significant problem in the days ahead. One more map for you, Brooke. This is quite interesting. All of the colors of red are road closures. In blue, all these little dots are bridge closures. In the days ahead, maybe weeks later, once all the water finally recedes, can you imagine the damage that we're going to find? This no doubt will be the next billion-dollar natural weather disaster in the U.S.
A critical situation at the University of South Carolina. The campus in Columbia is without water, and students are rushing to stores to get bottled water. They're stuck in their dorm rooms, unable to leave because of the flooded roads.
I am a student, can't really leave since they're closing roads and that kind of thing, so that's about, you're kind of stuck.
Emergency crews are working to get them bottled water and portable toilets. Officials say it's fortunate that at least the campus is on high ground and residence halls have not been seriously damaged.
I live on the 12th floor of a building, so I should be fine, hopefully. Right now, we're standing in line at CVS because nobody has water and it has to be boiled.
And how long have you been in line here?
30 minutes.
Oh, wow. I'm Ari Sarsalari, The Weather Channel.
Investigators are
are trying to figure out what caused a valve leak at the Millstone nuclear power plant in Waterford. Tonight, operations are back to normal after the incident forced the plant into emergency mode. News 8's Josh Scheinblum joins us now live in the studio with the latest. Josh?
Aaron, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is calling what happened at the Millstone Power Station an unusual event. And tonight an investigation is underway to find out what went wrong.
From the Niantic shore, you can see a structure off in the distance that most who live here never give a second thought to.
I don't know, how dangerous it is, really, but I've sort of become numb to the fact that the nuclear power plant is right there.
It's the Millstone Power Station in Waterford, a nuclear plant. And Sunday morning, it was the scene of an emergency. Around 9:30, one of the reactor's cooling systems began to leak water, triggering a declaration called an unusual event, the lowest of 4 levels of emergency classifications. The water leaked at a rate greater than 25 gallons a minute, and why it happened in the first place is still under investigation. The source of the problem was a relief valve. Emergency management officials in New London tell News 8 by 11 a.m. the situation was under control. No one was injured, and personnel with Millstone say nothing radioactive ever went into the environment.
My father and brother worked there as Boilermakers building it.
For Bill Silva, who is a former resident of Niantic and still visits the area on a regular basis, feels the event raises questions over the power station's safety.
And that thing's old. Parts of it is very old. What kind of upgrading have they done? I think there has to be better control with nuclear.
Not all agree with Bill.
A lot of friends that work there, they all tell me it's safe.
Gary Marone, a Niantic resident, contends, if anything, what Sunday morning demonstrates is that when faced with a potentially dangerous situation, staff at Millstone are ready and able to deal with the issues they're presented with.
They monitor everything all the time, 24/7, so when something goes down, they're on it right away.
A Millstone spokesperson sent us this statement. It reads in part, Millstone personnel took prompt action to stop the leak. No water was released into the environment. The safety of the public was not threatened and no action by the public was required. Now, the area of the plant where this had happened was scheduled for a shutdown this month for maintenance, and officials with Millstone say those who use their power won't notice a difference in their service. It's not clear how long it will take to make repairs to the faulty valve. For now, we're live in studio, Josh Scheinblum, News 8.
Turkey says the Russian jet entered its airspace south of the Hatay region on Saturday. The Foreign Ministry has warned against any repeated violations. It also said Turkish Foreign Minister Feridun Sinirlioglu has already spoken about the incident with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov, as well as key NATO partners. The UK's ambassador to Turkey, Richard Moore, called on Twitter Russia's move as reckless and worrying, and said UK and other NATO allies would stand shoulder to shoulder with Turkey. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan has criticized Russia's airstrike in Syria as a grave mistake.
I will convene a meeting of the North Atlantic Council later today to discuss the situation. I call on Russia to fully respect NATO airspace and to avoid escalating tensions with the alliance. I urge Russia to take the necessary steps to align its efforts with those of the international community in the fight against ISIL. I made clear that NATO remains strongly committed to Turkey's security.
The old city was in a virtual state of lockdown, for Palestinians who wished to enter, that is. Heavily armed police blocking all the access gates. The unprecedented security measures followed 2 separate knife attacks overnight. 2 Israelis were killed in the first and 1 lightly injured in the second. In each incident, the Palestinian attackers, both 19, were shot dead. Tourists continued to be allowed into the old city, slowly filing through the police lines, while Palestinian after Palestinian is being turned away. Israeli citizens are, as usual, allowed unfettered access, but the only Palestinians allowed to enter are those who own businesses in the Old City or who are resident there. As for those wishing to worship at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, only men over the age of 50 are allowed to enter, and they have to come through this specific gate, a lengthy walk away from the traditional point of access. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who's been in the United States during the past week of crisis, is coming under intense domestic pressure to take even stronger measures against the Palestinians. Even members of his own government are saying not enough is being done to combat what they call Palestinian terror. The Israeli army carried out several operations in the occupied West Bank, some related to the overnight attacks and others in the wake of the killing of 2 settlers on Thursday. And throughout the day it became increasingly clear that far from being confined to Jerusalem, the conflict was spreading throughout all occupied territory. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera in occupied East Jerusalem.